Hello and welcome to my channel and to another Brother ScanNCut video. As you can see, I'll be using Canvas Workspace today, and I have the online version on my screen at the moment, but what I'll be doing today you can also achieve the very same in the downloadable version if that is what you would like to work with. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to bring in a new canvas so that we can start designing. And today what I want to do is take you through a step-by-step process to create flowers. Now these flowers are all going to be created from one shape. And I'm going to start here in patterns with a basic shape that I've selected, and that is going to be this one here. All these shapes here that I see remind me of flower petals, so I thought that's where I'm going to start from, and I'm just going to bring it onto my mat. I'm not going to worry about the size at this point because I can change that size at any time. So to make it easier for myself and for you to see what's going on the screen, I'm going to give it some color. And I'm going to make a duplicate copy, going up to Edit and Duplicate, and that is just my safety net copy. In other words, I can go back to that at any time, or if I want to start again with another design, I've always got that handy, and at any time I can delete it. Once I'm finished working with it and I don't need it any longer, I'll just send it to the bin. So I've got this one on the screen now, and I want to make another copy. Now you can go back here to Edit and Duplicate, or there is another choice. You can right click on your mouse and duplicate. So I'm going to bring that up here, and I'll bring you in closer so we can have a better look. It doesn't matter where we work at this point because this is not a cutting file. This is a designing process at the moment. So it doesn't matter where these shapes are sitting, as long as we bring them into the cutting area, the red area here, before we send it to either our computer or over to the machine. So for this shape I want to create, I'm going to need to change the orientation of this second shape, and one of the quickest ways to do that is to actually just flip it, because I wanted to turn it 90 degrees. If I go in here and check in the properties box, or 180 degrees, I'm sorry, 180 degrees, and that's what has been achieved just by flipping it. So I'm going to also need to weld these shapes together. And to do that, of course, they must overlap. I'm just going to pretty much eyeball where I want it to be. Now, I could test it out by doing that and welding it. And I think that's too narrow there. So I can change my mind by using the undo key and change the position there, check on it, and that's better. However, it's not exactly aligned as I would wish. I want it aligned exactly horizontally. So I'm going to undo, select both of those, and align them on the center, on the horizontal position. And now they are aligned perfectly. Then I can weld them, and I can weld them here, or I could weld them from my mouse as well by right-clicking on the mouse. So I've got that And since I have that, and I'm happy with it, I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate for myself just to have available in case I need it. The next thing is to duplicate it and rotate it to the 90 degrees. This is where I wanted the 90 degrees. The 90 degrees. And the fastest way to do that would of course be to go into Show Properties and put the new value in here for it. But you could of course, if you wanted to, use your rotation key here and guess as best you could. I was close, but I'm going to just use that since it's there. Now, again, like the other shape that created this, I want to align it and weld it. So I'm going to align it and I'm going to weld it together. And I have the beginnings of a flower, but I don't want just 4 petals. I want more than that. In fact, I want an 8-petal flower. And in this case, all I have to do is to go up here and duplicate it yet again. And I want it to be setting offset from that shape underneath it. And this was rotated to 90 degrees. So this means this has to be in between the 0 and the 90 degrees. So that means 45 degrees. And I should come up with the shape that I want by now selecting both of those and aligning them and welding them. And there is my basic flower shape. And if you go back into basics and you look at the shapes in here, there are some that already have that sort of shape to them. You have that one, which has more petals in it, but you have this one as well that looks very similar to that one, except in this case there were just the 6 curves rather than the 8 as we desired for this one. So we've made our own flower shape, and we don't have to necessarily rely on the shapes, the basic shapes that have already been created for us, because these shapes have come from other shapes as well. So I hope you're getting the idea. The shapes are the building block. They are the starting point for everything else. So now you can see that we've come from this shape to this shape, and we haven't had to add anything else to get to there. Now, if I want to take that a little further, because I want to use this on a card, I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller. If I drag here from that handle, that's going to maintain the aspect ratio as it now stands. So if I were to go in like this, then that means the aspect ratio is going to be independent of it. The 2 aspect ratios will be independent of each other, but I don't want that. I want it to be maintained, and I can do that by just using that drag handle there. Or I can go in here and do the same. So now what I'd like is to have some more of this flower, but rather than just duplicate it and make it smaller and smaller and smaller, I want to be able to layer it together. And I'm going to use my offset function for that. And I'm going to create an offset. I'm going to create an inward offset. And I'm going to have it somewhere about 1/4 of an inch smaller. I'll leave my original intact and round the corners. And when I click OK, I have my new shape. And to distinguish it, I can change the color on my screen just so that I can keep track of it. And again, it will be transparent once it becomes a cutting file on my machine or in my downloaded file. So I'm going to now offset that offset, and I'm going to do it a little bit, put a little bit more space in between it and what is now that original. So I have this shape, and you see now it's completely different, and I can change the color of that. Then I can put all these back together by doing my alignment function. And I can even group them so that I could keep them together while I'm still working on the designs. And then when I get ready to send this to my machine, I will be sure to ungroup those so that they cut separately. And I can also then, when I get to the machine, change the size of each of the individual shapes. But this is essentially how it's going to look once I've cut out 3 different pieces of cardstock and then layered them together. And again, it started out as that. The next shape, or flower petal, that I'm going to make, I'm going to use that original one again, so I'll duplicate it. And now I'm going to take this node, grab that little handle there, and begin to bring it in. And I think I would like the widest part of this petal to be 1 inch. So I can come up here, make sure I deselect the aspect ratio and change that to 1 inch. And as you see here, it has indeed changed it to 1 inch. Then I will duplicate that one. And as before, I want to turn it 180 degrees, so I could use this rotation function, or in this case, I could flip it vertically again. Then I want to overlap it. And again, I'm just sort of eyeballing where I think I'd like it. And I want to assure that it's aligned correctly in the center and welded together. And I'm happy with that. So because I'm happy with that, I'm going to make sure I keep a copy as a spare. Then duplicate this again. And rotate it 90 degrees. So 90 degrees. Select both shapes, align them horizontally and vertically, and then I can weld them. Now I could, if I wanted to, just make additional duplications of these and then put them together, but it's just as fast to do it this way, where they're all welded together, because I'm not going to change the aspect of them in any other way. So I'm just going to weld those, and then I can duplicate that welded shape. So I'm going to be sure that it's turned about like that, and that means it's going to be in between 0 and 90 degrees, so I want it at 45 degrees. I got close there, but I'm going to turn that into 45 degrees exactly. And select both, align it to the center and in the middle, and I'm ready now to weld all of those together, and I have my new flower, which I created from that shape. Created that shape, and even these shapes from one basic shape. Now, as it is, they're just shapes on this workspace. So let's make them into something else. Let's move that out of the way, and we'll move this out of the way, and let's turn this into an embellishment for a card. And I could, of course, just make many duplicates of that. Duplicate that several times if we wanted to, or whatever we like, and we could cut them out. We could resize some of them and then layer them together, and that would be fine, but I want to actually make them part of the card, or the topper of the card. And to do that, what I'm going to do is bring in another shape. I'm going to bring in just a square, and I'm going to resize that. Now I'm going to put this on a 5x5 card, and for the topper I want it to be a little bit smaller. So by making it 1/4 of an inch smaller, that means it's 1/8 of an inch smaller all around. So if I duplicate that now and go back to 5 inches, that would be my card base. So that would be, well, actually it would be 5 by 10 inches, and then this would be sitting on top of it. I'm going to give that a little bit of color, and I could even just give it white, and that would be fine, because what I'm going to do with these is I want to bring them in. Now they would be behind at the moment, so I want to send that to the back so that I'm working on top with these flowers, and I'm going to begin to resize them. And as I said, grab from one of these corners and it will maintain the aspect ratio. I can do the same with this one and with this one. So I'm going to have these 3 flowers on top of my card base, and just move them about a bit. This one, I'll have it here, and I would like this one down in the corner here, and this, actually, I'm going to overlap it, and I'm also going to rotate it just a bit as well. And then I'm going to take this one and have it overlap going to just nudge that down a bit. And the same with this. Have that nudged down just a wee bit. And now I will weld that together. What I want to do now is to actually punch these flowers out so that I have this flower shape aperture in my card. I can separate it or subtract it, and it's actually punched that through, as you can see. So if I gave this piece over here some color and I bring it under here, you'll see that that is what's going to show. So whatever color is underneath this is what's going to come through. But I also could do this. I'll go back to where we were. And now this time I'm not going to subtract. Instead, I'm going to divide, because that is going to maintain these shapes as they are. And the reason, of course, that the white became this fuchsia color is because that is the color that was on top. Had these been white, then that would be white. So again, it's the same thing where we've got some color behind it, and we'll see it. But we also now have this option to use these shapes as they are. And if I change the color of them, so we can just pretend that we are using this color of cardstock for each of these. We could have some yellow flowers on top and this little green one behind, and then we could inlay those or paper piece them for a completely different look altogether. So if we had some white cardstock behind here, then we could have something that looks like that. Or if we take them out altogether, then we could perhaps have some pattern paper behind here, and then that would show through as well. So that is how I'm going to use these shapes today. And before I completely close out the video, what I'll do is I'll go back in, I'll clean this up, and I'll only have the portions that I'm going to be cutting out. And when I do that, I'll create my cutting file, send it to my machine, and then I'll put up the results at the end of this video. So I hope you'll take the time to play with shapes and see how many shapes you can come up from just one shape, as we did here with this shape today. And these are just the simple things that we were able to create. There's lots more that we'll learn as we go along, like how to completely change even this beginning shape by manipulating it, these nodes and so forth, and creating even more. I hope you enjoyed this, and I can't wait for the next one. I hope to see you then. In the meantime, please stay safe and crafty hugs. Bye. Cut out all the pieces now, and this is the topper that's going to go on top of our card blank. If that were our card blank there, you can see that it's white on white at the moment, and you could just leave it that way. I also cut it out in some other colors. So if we wanted to, we could, for example, use this yellow and just paper piece that by placing that back in to those apertures, or we could change out the color. Let me see here. Or even do something like this. We take another and layer that one as well. The other thing to do to give these even more depth, you could put these on little foam squares and lift them up so that they stand proud of the cutouts. And there's another idea for you. If you wanted to just use the cardstock, you could just have a solid piece of cardstock behind there and then place that on your white card base, or if you had a colored card base, you could use that. Use something like this and it becomes even more dramatic. Or for a holiday season, what about something like that? That is just your beginning, and the rest is all going to be up to you. Any sentiments, any other embellishments, enamel dots, pearls, whatever you like on here. And also here is the other flower that we made. I've just cut out the different layers to that, and we have a sweet little flower. And then we could put a little pearl in the middle of that. And again, we could have these raised on foam squares, and then maybe even have them adorned like this. So it's all up to you. Have fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye.